everybody. I'm Maureen, Jann, the Director of Marketing here at Pointit, a digital marketing agency in Seattle, Washington. And I'm here with Sean Van Gelder, the Director of SEO and Analytics. Hi, Sean.
Hello.
Today we're doing basically a review of Beware the Backlinks panel on modern SEO strategies that Sean was on earlier this month at Startup Week Seattle, sponsored by Techstars and Chase. So that was a lot of fun, and I was the moderator, so it'll be extra lively today. Sean, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yep, as Maureen mentioned, I'm Sean Van Gelder. I've been doing web development, SEO, analytics, paid search for going over 20 years now. And I love SEO because it's partly technical, but it's also some creativity that goes into it with the marketing aspect. So anybody who wants to talk SEO with me, please let me know.
Well, on the panel, we had Sean himself, as well as Rand Fishkin, the Wizard of Moz and renowned SEO expert, as well as David Lindahl, the Solutions Manager at CDK Global and the President of the Seattle Search Network. We covered some really interesting questions, and since we didn't get to actually record that session, I thought it may be helpful for us to kind of go through the questions, you and I, since I have you readily available, and we can talk through what we went over. So. The first question that we talked about was, how do you define a high-performing SEO strategy? And I thought that was really interesting because it was pretty high level, and the audience was startups. So we had a very startup-specific look at it. So talk to me from a startup perspective, like how do you define a high-performing SEO strategy?
Well, I think it takes into account everything SEO, right? So we talk about the three pillars of SEO. There's the technical, which is basically the foundation of your website. There's the on-page, which is your content, your information architecture, but then thirdly, who's linking to you. So high-performing, I think basically the best strategy when going into building a new website or redesigning a site is looking at the longevity of it, making sure that number one, the technical piece, the technical pillar, the foundation of your house basically for your website is solid. If you don't have that, it's going to be very hard to rank for other things, especially with mobile searches. Your content, so looking at how your content is structured on the pages, how are you answering questions, how are you relating to the people that are actually going to search for your product or service. But then also too, what is your outreach? How are you getting this content in front of those people that want your services? So ensuring that you have a good social media presence, that you have a content calendar, that you're actually promoting your content out to your social media channels. A lot of companies forget all those pieces work well together. And ideally, if you can, as a startup, use other digital marketing channels, but specifically with SEO, is making sure that you have that first 6 months planned out and that you're taking into consideration all the technical items and your competitive analysis that goes into starting a new business or a new website.
So I always find this part very interesting. SEO isn't SEO in a standalone sense. It's not you slapping a bunch of keywords on a page. It's bigger than that. And it's really making sure that you have a strong strategy that you can apply the SEO strategy to. You know, you have to have a foundation. You have to know who your competitors are. You need to know where you want to show up compared to those competitors. You want to know who those customers are compared to what the competitors' customers are as well. So SEO, what always surprises me, especially when I talk to you, is that it doesn't operate in a vacuum,
and you know, one of the things that I've talked to other people about too is, you know, when SEO first came about, it was because we were truly optimizing for the search engines. We weren't really optimizing for customers or user searches, queries, that sort of thing. And I think to some degree, SEO is a bit of a misnomer now. It's not really search engine optimization, it's user intent optimization. So understanding who your customers are, you know, build personas, do the research like you were mentioning of who are the competitors' clients, who do you want for a client, and then making sure that you're meeting that client halfway in the engines and through social media, et cetera, to get them to be a devoted customer for your product.
Sure, that makes sense. Man, personas. That's a flag I could wave all day long.
Oh, yeah, and that's one of the first questions I ask clients when I first meet them, especially marketing teams. Do you have personas developed? because oddly enough, oftentimes they don't think with SEO that we're going to use that to inform our strategy that's going to help them move the needle and increase sales and leads.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Fantastic. Well, our next question is really about the practices we put in place, and, you know, what does success look like for SEO for a startup, or, you know, especially if you're like second round and you have some money and you've had some content, what does that look like?
Yeah, as far as modern SEO practices and things like that go, looking at if you have a website already, right? So ensuring that you're using that data and understanding it, interpreting it, aligning whether or not there's been updates to Google's algo, and you've seen varying degrees of either positive or negative gains through organic search, through backlinks, et cetera, understanding whether or not you're aligning to best practices. Another thing to look at is how well are you using the tools that engines give you. Google and Bing both have wonderful tools when it comes to understanding things like schema markup. And, you know, I won't go into details about it, but you can do a lot of research on it. And basically the way I describe it is it's hyper HTML. It gets information about your company, about your website, about your products in front of the engines, so that the engines don't have to interpret or try and make assumptions about what you're trying to tell them. You know, looking at, especially now with Google moving to a mobile first index, ensuring that your site is performing well, it loads fast, it looks nice on a mobile device, and it's easy to navigate. Because if you don't, there are a lot of companies out there that they're going to end up getting negatively impacted by not having a mobile optimized site.
Sure, that makes sense. So you mentioned using the data on your website. Can you tell me a couple of samples of the kind of data you can glean off of your website?
Absolutely. So the first thing I do anytime we have a new client, we'll go through and pull in the last 3 or 4 years worth of data. And there again, we'll look at the organic traffic from Google, Bing, Yahoo, and other engines to see if there have been these dips and valleys within each of those engines. If there have, you know, that data is fairly evident that there have been those dips and those dips and increases. We'll look at the history of updates. You know, we'll go into the larger ones by Google. We'll look at some of the other minor ones to see if this could have been impacted. And then that informs us to look at other things, like, for example, bounce rate, overall bounce rate for organic traffic, not just the entire site, but then looking at pages that should be ranking well and garnering that traffic for their business, looking at those specific pages, click-through rate from engines, the bounce rate, the time on those pages, et cetera, that will help inform what you should be addressing.
Okay, great. That's really helpful. The other question I had for you was, you said something about tools, and I like tools, and people like free tools. So tell us all about the free tools.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's getting harder and harder to find free tools. Moz, they offer some great free tools right now, especially around like Open Site Explorer, et cetera. But you know, to some degree, SEMrush has some free analysis that they do. I mean, it's limited to a certain number of rows of data, et cetera. Ahrefs is the same thing, and Majestic to a certain degree as well. So you can get down the path of understanding what's going on with your site with those tools, but then also too making sure that your site is verified within Google Webmaster Tools, which is now Google Search Console, as well as Bing Webmaster Tools, because they provide a wealth of information that's free.
I like free. Free. Thumbs up.
Free.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, I know we spent a lot of time on this question at Seattle Startup Week because people like to talk about what's wrong. But in this case, so like, let's talk about what are some of the common pitfalls we see in SEO approaches. And I remember your initial reaction was, how much time do you have? But this is a short video, Sean. It's a short video.
I know. Well, I think I mentioned this at Tech Startup too, is there's a whole hashtag on Twitter around SEO horror stories, and that's the hashtag. So it's funny it just, you know, obviously goes on and on, but, you know, I think the main pitfall is people, especially in the startup world, they're needing to get the site up and running to conduct business. that is their business. That's their revenue generator. So they have to get out the door. And oftentimes then we'll have clients come to us after that happens and say, yeah, I know we need SEO, but the site's up and running, it's not doing very well. And instead of actually starting with SEO as a foundation, it's usually an afterthought. And the other pitfall that I see companies get into is with budget. You pay for what you get. If you're going to pay for a consultant that comes to you with, oh, I can get you on page 1 for $750. That's just not going to happen. The other thing is, I would never say to a client, I guarantee I'm going to get you in the first spot or on page 1, unless it's for certain keywords like their branding, right? That's going to be easy, but that's not what it's about. It's actually about understanding how to get traffic to the site. Another common pitfall is I think goes along hand in hand with starting out with SEO, is making sure that your site information architecture is structured such that it's going to be easy for not only search engines to understand, but especially your users, the visitors to your site. I've seen so many companies start up a website with their own terminology and, basically completely ignoring the KISS mentality of, keep it simple, stupid. Instead, they want to be kitschy or, clever with some of their terminology, and it confuses people.
Bad navigation makes everyone cry.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably more impatient than most people, but I think when it comes to landing on a website, if I don't understand completely, right away where to go or get the information, I bounce. And most people do that.
I agree with you. And the other part about that is that's, I think, a huge issue for most marketers, especially when you're looking at landing page optimization and that kind of thing, is making sure that you have a very clear path for your users from the first moment you're on the website to, after they've read the whole page. Where do you want them to go next? What's the most important thing to you and your business, or to your customer, more importantly to your customer?
Yeah. So, I think tone of voice is really important too when people write content, because I've worked for companies before internally as well as had clients where basically they get in the way of themselves.
Yeah.
And I always use the analogy that if I'm reading content where I feel like I'm at a party, I'm cornered by this guy that's constantly talking about himself and his boat and his house and his cabin and all this, I tune out. I'm done. Versus write your content so it informs me of how you solve my problem. And that is really going to drive not only leads, but revenue down the road.
That's a conversation I spend a lot of time with, for the pointed copy, as well as, the other kinds of copy that I write. We talk a lot about making the customer the rock star. How can you make them better at their job so that they look like a rock star to their company? Like that's a foundational principle for us. So.
Yeah, and I think if you keep in mind that every person coming to your site has a task or goal that they're trying to accomplish, don't get, you're getting in the way of them accomplishing that by just talking about yourself and how great you are versus how great this is going to make your life. So storytelling.
Absolutely, man. Storytelling so key. Not only that, but people are more likely to finish your story than to just bail.
Yep.
Yeah. Fantastic. So the last question we talked about at Startup Week was, what are the first SEO strategies that startups should invest in? So talk to me about that.
I would say your social media program and garnering high quality backlinks. So doing content promotion through those channels, using something like Outbrain, et cetera. But, Moz has a great list of, I think it's called the first 50 backlinks that you can get. But making sure that you're getting your content out there is a great investment. And I'm not saying purchase links. I'm saying, promote your content. If you purchase links, you're going to get banned by the engines, guaranteed. I think the first one is making sure that you're getting those links organically. And the best way to do that is use some sort of content promotion tool like Outbrain. Investing in some paid search, I think is a great one. And what that's going to do, I know it's weird for an SEO person to talk about paid search, but the great thing that that's going to do is it's going to inform you and provide you deeper data into what people are actually searching on, email, versus just operating in a vacuum. So put some investment into paid search that's actually going to impact your organic, but also more importantly, invest in garnering those links through paid social, whether it's you know, paid social media, organic source social media. Get eyeballs in front of your message.
The nice part about social media advertising is that it's very flexible too for the startup budget. So you can, and highly targeted.
Yes.
For a variety of reasons, both from a indicating behavior, buying behavior perspective to demographics and interests. I think the tricky part, especially right now, is that we're running into Facebook messing with the algorithm, and that's the only way you can get in touch with your Facebook followers, which is crazy pants. But
yeah.
you know, that's a whole nother topic. But I know that Twitter has worked really well for us in sharing content and getting eyeballs on content and getting them to the site. So that could be a great way. And people think that Twitter is dead, which I think is crazy. I think it's just a matter of they haven't found their community and they don't understand how the hashtags work. So I encourage people to look into those things to help get more backlinks, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think we, in this internet age, have such a short attention span. It's like, well, Twitter's dead now. Well, it's not. We still see a lot of good connections coming from that. And depending on your business, you know, especially if you're selling products online, running campaigns or campaigns that are contests or things like that can just generate this viral message that boosts your traffic so much. So yeah.
Totally.
So as far as the order, I would say number one, social media, whether it's organic or paid, and then looking at how you can do outreach to various websites, either through advertising like Outbrain or manually reaching out to those within the industry that are experts for your market.
Yep, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, that brings us kind of to the end of our interview here. So I appreciate your time. I'm really excited we got a chance to talk through the questions and give a little overview for our audience.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love talking about SEO, so anytime.